Hello and welcome to VistaTalks, interesting discussions with interesting people from all around the world. I'm your host for today, Simon Hodgkins. Today I'm joined by Jana Straiton. Jana is the founder and managing director of Renegade Marketing, a great agency, and Jana is a branding visionary with a passion for helping technology innovators really stand out. Experience leading marketing teams at Adobe and PayPal, and now obviously leading Renegade Marketing, a branding agency kind of known for its rebellious ethos and commitment to helping brands break through the noise. So, Jana, you're very welcome to VistaTalks.
Thank you so much, Simon. Really excited to be here today.
Well, it's a pleasure. And I started by saying that you've been working with brands, helping them break through the noise, and you've built a reputation, I know, for helping technology brands in particular and other brands, but you help them differentiate through, I'm going to use the word again, rebellious, maybe unconventional branding. What does that rebellious ethos that I'm referring to actually mean, Jana?
Yeah, I think rebellious could mean anything, but for us in branding, it kind of is what we internally describe as zigzagging. So we essentially look at where the market is going, and then we like going the opposite direction. So that's essentially the kind of a basic principle we follow. And I think one of the most recent project we've done with a fintech brand called Colo. It's a fintech brand based out of US. It's a really good example. So we essentially started working with this client. We really got to know them, see what they're all about. And then we kind of figured that they are absolutely obsessed, passionate, and nerdy about fintech. So we created this brand personality for them called, like the fintech nerds. And we created a brand identity for them, which almost looks like a cool Star Trek, So that's essentially how we went about it. And their competitors are brands like Stripe. So as you can imagine, the personality difference, Stripe is about being the partner for businesses, and Colo is about being the absolute obsessive nerd about anything to do with fintech. So they know everything there is to know. They're obsessively innovating. They're making the financial infrastructure better. So those two are very different types of brands, different types of people, different types of teams. So visually that needs to come across. So Stripe is very much still in blue, or using hues in their designs. With Colo, we went the opposite direction. Everything is very dark, very stark, very minimal. We visualize their products in quite a scientific, spacey kind of a way with these diagrams. So visually they're different, personality-wise they're different. That's what helps them stand out and helps them differentiate, I think. So that's just an example of how we work with brands. We get to know them, we try to figure out what makes them different, and then we bring it to market in the way that really stands out.
Yeah, I really like that, because obviously when you're up against a big brand that's well known around the world, you obviously have to come up with those differentiators that stand out. And it seems like you really got under the skin of that company to figure out, well, what are they passionate about? What makes them different? And that sort of fintech nerd type of persona that you're able to expand upon really helps them stand out. And it's nice. Thank you for breaking down. When we talk about that sort of rebellious, unconventional branding, that's an actual real live case of something that really works. And it brings me nicely, Jana, onto what I know you're keen on, which is helping brands build attitude. Okay. Now, when we talk about attitude, obviously you've kind of given us a little bit of a flavor there to building a brand, but how does that actually translate into those real world sort of business results that I know companies are after? They're trying to scale, they're trying to become more profitable. You're in a highly competitive technological landscape a lot of the time. So how does that attitude translate into those real world business results? Are you laser focused on that, Jana?
I'm not sure if it's necessarily attitude. We like the word attitude because we have full bags of that at the agency. But what we're really trying to kind of pin down is what's the spark that makes that business different? You know, what is that kind of je ne sais quoi? You know, like what's the swagger they have going on? You know, what is that it factor they have, similar to what we talked about with Colo? So we're really trying to figure out what is it that makes this business quite unique. And we do that by having conversations with the founders, the C-suite, the team, you know, the sales team. Like we try to get to know the team. We try to get to know their products. And then we try to kind of come up with that it factor that makes the business different. And the way how we translate that into results, well, essentially, you know, you said it in the beginning, these startups that have limited budgets, limited, you know, resources, they really need to do something differently in order to compete with these incumbents, these established businesses, which have, you know, all the money, all the resources. So you really need to be quite different in order to get attention. And that's essentially how we help these businesses stand out, get that attention, and you know, standout differentiation attention really translates into your business getting noticed, your business getting on those sales calls, your business closing those deals. So that's how we see attitude translating into business results.
Yeah, thank you, Jana. And I think it's interesting because on both sides of the equation, obviously, a large brand needs to be aware that this is how the sort of challenger brands are starting to focus on them. They're looking for that sort of sweet spot that they can exploit, expand, scale for all the things that you've been discussing. And obviously, for the company that's maybe not a massive global brand at the moment, maybe they're national and they're trying to go international, they also need to think about how they're going to compete in a very busy global landscape. So thank you for sharing that. And I know yourself and the team at Renegade Marketing, you do everything. I mean, brand strategy, identity, creative campaigns, really important in today's world. So do you have a particular way that you approach integrating maybe those elements to deliver that impact for your clients, whether that's in a local market or that international market? Because you've got things like culture, language, industry knowledge. It's all essential, isn't it, Jana?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way how we go about it at Renegade is we have a look at our clients. We know them really well. We know what business problems they have. We know what their plans are, what their vision is. So we build all of our products and services around our clients. So we started with branding because a strategy and brand is the foundation of any business, any marketing. If your foundation is not solid, you cannot build a decent marketing campaign on like shaky foundation. So we started with that, and then working with our clients, you know, we realized, okay, so now they have the foundation, they know what their message is, they know what their value prop is, they know what their, you know, how they talk about themselves in the market to their clients, they know what they look like. Now they needed a website. That's their shop window. You know, that's essentially what tech brands do. Their shop window is their website. So then we expanded our services into creating brand websites. So we kind of obsessed about usability, discoverability of the content, the functionality of the websites. So it's not just the design, it's all of the aspects of discovering the right information for their customers. And then after that, our clients, you know, needed their sales teams to be ready to go and, you know, sell their brand, sell their products. So we now started to partner with our clients on creating the sales presentations in terms of the storytelling, the narrative, the designs. We do sales demos, sales demo videos. So we're kind of helping them sell their business, make their business stronger. And then the most recent services we added to our agency are addressing the visibility problem, because our clients now, they know how they talk about themselves. They know how their sales teams are going out there and selling their business. They have a website. They really need to start ramping up the visibility so more people know about them. So we recently expanded our services into LinkedIn content, thought leadership content, and brand PR. So everything we do is trying to address the problems for our clients and working with our clients, we know what challenges they're facing. So we're absolutely obsessing with their problems so we can serve them better. We like to be considered as strategic partners for our clients. So we help them grow. We want them to be successful because obviously when our clients are successful, we're successful. So that's essentially how we approach productization or, service offerings at Renegade.
Yeah, and I really like the partnership approach. And you said something obsessing over their problems. So, that. But what I also liked, Jana, is that you're not only putting the sort of the foundation in place and then building out the website. You're taking that brand messaging right through to the sales messaging, how they're going about conducting their business, and as you say, then adding on the other complex sort of solutions, which are now how do we get that message out to more people in terms of that awareness. So that's really good. Thank you for sharing that and how that works at Renegade Marketing. So now I mentioned already that I know you worked at Adobe and PayPal, all right? You did great work there. And that means you've seen both the large corporate side of things and also the agency side of marketing and brand. Are those experiences complementary? Do they influence how you work with your clients today?
Yeah, absolutely. I was in a corporate world for 20 years. I started in like the classical FMCG branding, and then I switched into tech and worked at Adobe, at PayPal. And when I was leaving the corporate world after 20 years, everybody, like were my colleagues, my family, my friends, they thought I lost the plot because usually you see agency people moving in-house. You never have a corporate person leaving their corporate career and starting an agency. So that was like, what, like, are you going mad? Like, what's happening there? So I think that was already like a first step towards, the kind of like unconventional approach of doing things. So I think that was kind of a first challenge. And so for me to try to figure out how do I even run an agency, it was a lot of mistakes, a lot of learning in the beginning. So I think I'm finally now getting the hang of it. And I think the elements which are helping me coming from that corporate world, I think there's a couple of them. The first one is the fact that when I work with clients, I know their internal pressures, their internal politics. I know some of the business challenges they might be having. So for me, partnering with my clients is easier because I've been there. I've been doing that. I worked with agencies, so I understand them. So I help them strategize not just how we build the brand or how we make their marketing more effective. I help them sell things internally. I help them get sign off on projects. I help them manage the politics. So I think it's easier. They pull me in and I'm able to operate in their world. And I think that just makes a difference because we're really partners. We're not, the kind of client and agency in a classical style of things. The second thing is when I work with my team at the agency, I'm always the voice of the client in the room because I know and I can anticipate what their challenges are going to be, why they would not be happy with the outcome we're producing. So I put a lot of pressure on my team to actually make sure that we have the client inside always built in. And it's easier for me because I was on that side. And I think finally, the companies I worked at had amazing cultures. And me as a team lead and kind of a team manager, I got a lot of training to be able to, give feedback to my team effectively, try to motivate them, even when things are not going right. I know how to bring them back out into the positive space. If they're underperforming, I know how to spot that. I know how to, bring them back and turn that around. So I think that all that training, which I was given as a team manager on the corporate side of things and experience in the great cultures I worked for, I know and I'm super clear on how I want to build the culture and the working environment in my agency. And I think that's quite important because a lot of my team comes from smaller agencies, and they tell me about like horrific experiences they had, in terms of how some teams are being run, or like, they tell me stuff that I feel like, oh my God, in corporate world, that would never be tolerated. So I think having that clear idea of how I want my team to feel, how I want them to perform, and being able to give them that direction, I think it's also really quite a big kind of building factor for how I want my business to run.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And it's great that you broke that down in terms of how you sort of approach things there. And I was thinking as you were talking, though, about you gave us a great example earlier of a client who's a challenger brand to a large global brand. But when you're building a new brand or a strong brand, or maybe even revamping an existing brand, whether it's in the fintech technology space or otherwise, it obviously sometimes involves challenging the way that a company currently does things, challenging the status quo, challenging the founders, the executive team, the management. Do you have to guide your clients through that discomfort, maybe, Jana, that comes with maybe sometimes having to take a creative risk?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what I'm realizing now as an agency owner is that when we do decide to work with a client, and that process of us choosing a client and client choosing an agency, it's almost like a dating process. Like you go through these discovery calls, you get to know each other, and we're already trying to assess whether we are a right match. So I think clients generally come to us because they're looking for something different. And then, we're kind of naturally prone to work with people who are a little bit more risk averse. So I think that process is already kind of happening a little bit in the initial stages as we kind of are courting each other. And then obviously then when we start working together on a project, me and the team, we kind of come out with a little bit of a spectrum of ideas. So we start off with like a one creative idea that answers the brief. Then we normally have like a one idea that is a little bit different. And then we have an idea which we call the wild card. So we kind of like present this suite of different ideas to our clients. And then we kind of, assess their like risk appetite based on that. And I have to say, so far, we had clients that always selected the wild card idea, which is really quite, we even go into the meeting thinking, oh, this is slam dunk, it's going to be the safe route. And we come out of the meeting like, whoa, did that just happen? They really went for the wild card, which we didn't even think that's going to be the case. So I think it's really quite good to give options, because even the client, sometimes they say they want to be risky, and then they realize actually this is too risky for us. So having that spectrum of riskiness is, I think, the way how we normally approach things. We always challenge ourselves to go with risky and the wild card ideas, just to make sure, we're pushing the envelope and pushing the boundaries. But we obviously let the client decide where on the risk spectrum they want to be, because it's their business, it's their brand. So it really is their call. But, we always make sure we have that risk spectrum covered.
Yeah, I really like the wild card approach, Jana. Very good. Like that.
That
And
sounds
I'm
like
even more
really
impressed that
wild.
yeah, I'm even more impressed that a lot of your clients choose the wild card. That's a really good sign. So that's
Yeah.
great. You must come across, though, businesses that are really struggling and they're making mistakes. Are there any mistakes that stand out when companies are trying to differentiate themselves, but they're getting it wrong? Is there any sort of common patterns that you see, Jana?
Yeah, I think the usual mistakes which the type of businesses we work with in tech, the kind of two usual mistakes. Number one, their messaging is very unclear, and that happens so often, in the world of tech. The technology is so complicated, and sometimes trying to explain what your business what your products are all about, what your services are, or what your software does, and especially when you're too close to it, sometimes, the teams are struggling to articulate it in a way that makes sense. So that's mistake number one. We usually 90% of the time we help our clients, articulate, sharpen up their value prop, the way how they talk about their products, their business. So that's kind of the mistake we usually see. They either try to be very, very complicated and they just losing people along the way, or they just are so vague that nobody knows what is it they're actually doing. So those are the two mistakes we normally see. And then, in terms of the differentiation, I had a client, we got on a call and they were like, can you just do what PayPal does? That's what we want to be about. They kind of sometimes see the more established businesses as the blueprint they need to follow. So they asked me to do what PayPal is doing. So I think trying to kind of navigate them through that, just because the established businesses are doing this doesn't mean all of us need to be doing that to look established, So I think trying to kind of explain to them that it's actually the opposite we need to be aiming for in order to, sound and look like we're doing something different is the right approach. I think that's fundamentally most of the conversations I usually have. They think they need to look mature, especially the younger startups. They want to be seen as established. So they want to copycat what established businesses are doing. And that's just fundamentally the wrong approach.
Yeah, that's essential advice, and thank you for explaining that a little bit more for us here today. Because you're right, people do get mistaken that they have to copy the big giants, when actually that's not how you're going to stand out, because you don't have the budget, the time, the people, the resources to compete toe to toe. You need a different approach and a different strategy. And I also liked what you were saying earlier about, in technology in particular, the technology can be so complex, or it has its own lingo and its own jargon almost, um, that the communication then isn't clear. So obviously helping them with clear communications is critical. You also mentioned that your team, a lot of them come from the agency world, which is great. But is there anything that you do to make sure that you're always innovating? How do you keep your own internal sort of creative spark going? Because you've got to come up with wildcards all the time for your clients. How do you and the team at Renegade, how do you work on your own sort of creativity to keep that fresh?
Yeah, I think for me personally, I'm really, really lucky to be living in one of the most exciting cities in the world. I live in London town. I absolutely love it here. And I'm based in East London. So for me, I just can, leave my front door and, I'm surrounded by creativity. It's just such a mecca of artists, creative people. You kind of stumbling across, you walk down the street, you see the latest graffiti murals, you see the pop-up stores, you see the latest restaurants, or the PR stunts, like outdoor ads. Everything is happening around here, and that's really exciting place to be, because you get ideas, you see creative things happening all the time. The other day I was in Shoreditch and I saw Chanel did this amazing like graffiti mural on one of the buildings in Shoreditch. And I'm like, wow, that's so amazing. You have these really established luxury brand doing something really cool with the street artists in this part of town, all these kind of merging, blending things. It's such a melting pot of everything. So I get ideas from just that. Obviously, I love going to, galleries. Again, in London, we just have so much of it. We're really lucky and privileged to have all these amazing places and artists coming here to us. So, I love seeing like modern art because it's really thought-provoking. I love going to a variety of different visual art exhibitions. That's where I get my ideas and kind of like a creative thinking flowing from these type of elements and experiences. In terms of my team, I love, and I think everybody should really be doing this, I love hiring really diverse teams. So everybody in my team has a different background, whether that's their experience or things they're into, or culturally they come from different places. So I feel like when you bring like these creative people from different parts of the world or experiences, or the type of way how they think, I love having a team like that, because everybody brings their different unique perspective on things, and that's just kind of how we come up with like variety of different creative things. The things I'm into, like my team is not into, and then everybody just brings their own perspective, their own experience, and that's just how we come up with new creative bold ideas. I think diversity is just so important, and I know a lot of companies are talking about diversity as part of their core values, but you really have to live it in order to get the most out of it. And I think this is kind of where we as a team, when we come together, it is really quite fun to see what we come up with.
That sounds like some great ingredients you have over there at Renegade, between the diversity elements, the creativity, and that melting pot and the environment that you live in. It's all contributing to that creativity. So thank you. I'm going to combine my next couple of questions, because I wanted to ask you about your thoughts on the future of branding, because some companies get very much into the results. They sort of don't focus on brand enough. And I also want to ask you about it in the context of AI and automation, because that's changing the marketing landscape a lot. What are your thoughts on the branding and how AI and automation is playing a part in your world, Jana?
Yeah, I mean, we as a team are obsessed with AI, are absolutely obsessed. I think you have two types of people: the AI lovers, the AI haters. We are, AI fanatics. So not just for the way how we building our agency, because in an agency world, AI is just absolutely transformative. I'm very clear. I'm not building an agency. I'm not building an AI agency. I'm building a hybrid business. We are going to be working in partnership with AI. I want human and machines working in like symbiotic relationship. That's essentially how we're building the business, and that's my team knows that. That's where we're going. That's just given. I want my entire team to be spending 100% of their time on creating, strategizing, innovating, and building relationships with our clients. I don't want them to be spending any of their time on anything else that can be AI kind of handled. So we're also partnering with a lot of agentic AI consultants. We're building that into our processes. So we're obsessing with it. When it comes to AI and branding, there are some of the most obvious things, which I'm so bored of talking about now. Obviously we need to use AI for building our brand content in the right way. Obviously, we need to use AI for doing our creative branding in a consistent way. Those are things which, we have been doing for like 18 months now, like that's given. The thing which I'm really excited about, and I think that's what we are absolutely focusing on as a team and branding agency, is how we can start influencing AI in the way how it thinks about our brand. So obviously, people are now using AI as their search engine. So we need to be step ahead. We need to be influencing AI. So when your clients or customers are researching your brand or your industry or your category, how can we influence AI to be portraying your brand in that context in the right way? So that's what we are now focusing on. I think the next 12 to 18 months, all brand teams need to be obsessing about this, because that's where the future of branding is heading. AI needs to think your brand is on top for whatever industry you are in. So that's what we need to be influencing as brand builders.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. And obviously, when it comes to those outputs that you're getting, you need to build consistency, don't you, across all the different brand touch points that you're working in partnership with your customers for. So do you have any advice for people or companies that they need to so they can actually ensure that their brand message stays strong, stays authentic, stays accurate and maybe on brand, to use a a standard marketing term. Is there anything that you do with the clients that you have to make sure that you have that consistency through all maybe their assets or outputs?
Yeah, 100%. And, it's actually quite simple. So it's really surprising how much inconsistency we see everywhere, because the consistency of branding boils down to three things. Number one, do you have your messaging framework? So everything, it's almost like your Bible for the business. Everything when you talk about your brand, your business, your products, needs to be in this messaging framework. So whether you are a salesperson, whether you are a brand person, whether you are a partnership person, everybody needs to sing from the same hymn sheet. And that's why you need a messaging framework. A lot of businesses we work with, they don't have that. So immediately the salesperson might be talking about your business differently in this meeting. The partnership person is striking this partnership deal and talking about your business differently. Your message on LinkedIn is different to your message on the website. So I think when you don't have that consistency of the message, and that needs to be in this messaging framework, immediately you sounding different across all different platforms. So when we work with clients, we have that messaging framework set in stone, and it goes down into the details of this is how you package the message for LinkedIn. This is how you package the message for webs. We literally go down to a channel level to make sure everybody knows how to talk about the business and the products by channel in a really quite consistent ways. Because when you start diluting that message, that's when the confusion creeps in and nobody quite knows what your business stands for, what you're selling, what you are all about. And that's a huge, huge problem. The second thing is templatization. So sometimes the brand can look different on the website, it can look different on LinkedIn, it looks different in the sales decks, it looks different in the investor pitch decks. So what we're really obsessing about when we work with our clients is templatization. So we give you a set of email templates and you use those email templates. We give you a set of social media templates and you don't deviate from your templates. We give you a set of templates for your PowerPoint. We give you a set of templates for your Google Slides, because we know like different teams and different organizations like using different things. So we literally obsess with templates. And then if everything is templatized, the kind of likelihood of people in your team going rogue with their ideas on what the brand should look like, you minimize that. So I think that's the second element. And the third thing is, for our clients, we actually provide coaching. So we would do, one-on-one coaching. We would do entire team presentations with some of our partners like Colo. We attended their all hands when the, brand relaunched. So we really kind of make sure we explain how to use the brand and we coach the teams on that. So I think that's the third element. So in general, having a really kind of a solid messaging framework down into the granular levels of the channels. Secondly, having templates, because you minimize the risk of people doing their own things. And then thirdly, coaching and training. I think those are the three elements we usually recommend to teams, making sure that they are really showing up consistently across the board.
Yeah, and I really like the sort of three element approach that you've shared there, but also it sounds very clear to me that don't leave anything to chance. You're taking it right down, as you say, to that granular level. Now, you've shared so much insight here. It's been a very good conversation today. We've talked about AI and branding and clear communications and challenger brands and everything in between. But I've got one last question for you. So whether you're a business owner or you're a large business looking to get even bigger, or you're a marketing leader maybe who just wants to improve their own marketing and branding for their company, what would be your parting advice? Have you got any advice to leave us with, Jana, that we can leave our global audience with today?
Yeah, I think the number one advice I would give to anybody would be, are you really clear on your strategy? Because I think, honestly, everything comes down from what your strategy is all about. Do you understand your customer? Do you know what your brand personality is? Do you know how you show up in the world? Do you know what your go-to-market strategy is? Do you know how to target your customers effectively? And I'm not saying that because I want to be patronizing. I'm saying that because I only went through this exercise last week because Renegade is actually going through a funding round. So last week I had to put together a pitch deck for investors. And that was literally the first time when I actually put the strategy on a paper, because I think we as marketers, business owners, we're so caught up in the day to day, whether that's like churning the campaigns out or, running the business. Sometimes we just really don't take the step back and think about, are we actually doing the right thing here? Are we like, do we really have the messaging that is like right? Is our product described in the right way? Do we have the right products? Like, do we really need a new website? Like, I think sometimes taking a step back and just like thinking about, are we doing the right things here? Do we need to pivot? Do we need to, like, is the strategy really solid? Are we messaging it right? I think sometimes having those moments when we stop and, reevaluate, I think that's really probably the number one advice I would give to everybody, because it's so fundamental. Sometimes we can be caught up in this, hamster wheel of churning campaigns out. But we might be going completely the wrong path, in that on that road. So I think, yeah, having those moments when you like really take a step back and rethink, and you might realize that whatever we're doing is absolutely fine, and that's great. But let's just have those moments, because yeah, we're just going sometimes 100 miles an hour, and we don't stop to think whether the speed we're moving is it the right direction to go. So I think that's probably my number one advice, only based on my continuous learning and my personal experiences.
I totally agree, Jana. And I love what you said about the hamster wheel, because you can find yourself just constantly doing things, but actually not getting off, taking that important step back, looking at it strategically, and
Mhm.
making sure that you're on the right course. I think it's great, a great comment that you've shared with us. It's a great thing that people need to do. So thank you for sharing that. And that, unfortunately, it brings us to the end of our time together today. I want to first of all thank everybody who is watching or listening to our discussion around the world. I'm going to, of course, ask them to go and check out all the great work you're doing over at Renegade. Check out Renegade Marketing, great agency, doing some great work with lots of brands. And hopefully you'll join me back here for some more discussions on VistaTalks, where once again, I'll be discussing some more interesting topics with interesting people, just like Jana. But Jana, thank you for being a guest on VistaTalks. It's been a pleasure to talk to you again today.
Thank you so much, Simon, for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation.